Hey there, welcome back to my channel. My name is Joey, and in today's video, I am going to be talking about the American tipping culture versus the Dutch tipping culture. Now, when I've had some American friends come and visit, they don't understand the whole no tipping thing. So I'm going to be elaborating on that a little bit more. Of course, I'm a born and raised American, so in my culture, in my roots, in my blood, I need to give money, honey. No matter what I'm doing, no matter what restaurant I'm going, no matter what kind of service I'm getting, no matter if the person is taking my bag from the airport and putting it on a trolley, I'm tipping, yeah? So I'm tipping our taxi driver, our, of course, waiter, waitress, our hairstylist, the person who handed you a straw. You just tip everyone and anyone. You just do not want to get in any sort of trouble. Now, coming to the Netherlands for the first time, I obviously knew because my boyfriend had already told me, of course he's European, and he had told me that tipping culture in his home was very different. And it wasn't until I came here that I actually got to experience the actual differences. So, of course, when I first started coming as a tourist myself, I would go to restaurants and I wouldn't tip, and I wouldn't really feel bad. Of course, I would feel some sort of guilt because I've been brought up to tip, so I kind of maybe felt like it was a little wrong. But I followed his lead, and I obviously, whenever we would leave the restaurant, I would look back like, oh my god, the waiter's coming, the waiter's gonna come like after us to ask us for a tip. But that actually never happened, and it wasn't until about like the 10th time that we were at a restaurant when I actually just asked the waiter, I was like, hey, listen, I'm from the States and we tip there, my boyfriend is Dutch, and he says that you guys don't tip here. Can you tell me, like, are you expecting me to tip or not? And he just told me no, like, we're not expecting a tip. If any tip I expect is €1 or $2. Which is about like $1.50, $2.50. So after finding this out, of course, I went on a little quest to find out what the actual tipping culture is like here in the Netherlands in terms of waiters and waitresses at restaurants. You only tip if it is outstanding service, not because you feel guilty, but just because they did something that kind of made it like, I don't know how to explain it, but kind of just, you felt it without having a pressure to do it. And the max is 10%, like nothing more than 10%. So if we go out, my boyfriend and I, and we spend €60 on a nice meal, because I am American, I do tip and I give €1 or €2, which is less than, of course, 10%, but if I really did love the service and the waiter or waitress was super kind and they were just really nice, then I give a little more, €3, €4. Now, I do know some people in the Netherlands that do not tip, and that's totally fine. And I do know some people, like a good friend of my boyfriend, he always tips. So it just varies, but you do not have a pressure to tip. You don't have to do it. If you really want to, then do it. Now, the funny part is that I had a couple of American friends actually come to visit me since I've been living here, and funny enough that they had no idea. So when they started coming, they would give 20% tip, and of course the waiter and waitress was like loving it, you know. She was just so happy about it, or he was so happy about it. And it wasn't until we went to dinner and I saw that they paid by card, and they were like, they brought the receipt, and in the States, of course, we get the receipt after you paid, and it has the total, and then it has a little line that says tip, and you've got to fill it in with a pen, and then you've got to plus and then add the total and then sign it. So when you get a receipt here in the Netherlands, there's no signature, no adding of tip. So when my American friends got the bill and they saw it, they opened it up and they were like, oh no, there's no place to tip. And the woman was like, oh no, you can't tip by card. So they were like, oh my gosh, we don't have any cash, so we can't tip. Do I need to go to an ATM? And the waiter or waitress was like, oh, I mean, if you'd like to, but don't worry about it. And then I was like, oh, you guys, afterwards, I was like, you don't tip here. You can give gratuity based on like what you feel, but I mean 20% is like too much, honestly. And I think every waiter or waitress would love it, but they will tell you, they're very honest here, 20% would be too much, really. So I think 10% would be you did an incredible job, you did a fantastic job, and I think they would love it. But again, I told them there is no pressure. Now vice versa, my boyfriend has an incredible story about the first time that he was in the States when he moved there to New York, of course, where we tip a lot. Yeah, New York is like one of the places in the United States where you tip about 20% or more. Like the base tip in New York City is 20%, where like the base tip in another part of the country might be 15%. So he was out with his friend at a restaurant, and they were eating, and of course they were having beer, and I think it was like his first week there or something. And as he tells his story to me, whenever they paid, they were walking out, and somebody came after them, which was the waiter or the waitress, and was like, excuse me, but I noticed that you didn't tip. Now that is actually very common. I worked myself as a host at a restaurant, and the waiters and waitresses would go after people to let them know, excuse me, why did you not tip? Or, you know, I noticed that you didn't tip. What was the reason? Was there bad service? But what happened to my boyfriend is that the waiter or the waitress came after them and was like, excuse me, but here in America, you tip. Here in the United States, you give about 20% tip, and you didn't give any, so I'm gonna need you to come back to the store and give me some tip. And they went back to the store, of course, and they had no idea like what was going on, and he was with a friend who was also from the Netherlands that had moved there at the same time, and they were trying to find cash to tip, but they did not have so much. And actually some people in the restaurant joined in and were telling them like, you gotta tip, man, 20%, and kind of giving them some pressure. And ever since then, my boyfriend has been so phobic anytime we're in the States to tip because of what happened. And my American friends, if you are coming to the Netherlands, and from what I have heard, it is pretty uniform in Europe, if you are coming to the Netherlands or to Europe, do not feel like you need to tip. Do not feel like you must give 20%. In fact, 10% would be the max that people here are expecting. And my European friends, do note that when you are in the United States, they are, or I should say we are, expecting you to tip. So, because it is a cultural thing, do take that into consideration. And when you do eat out, I would say, if you are in New York City or a metropolitan city, 15% would be a tip that would say, I mean, the service was good. 20% would be the service was right there, top of the line. I think anything below 15% would be sending some sort of message like something went wrong maybe. So I thought that would be a very fun first topic to discuss about Dutch culture versus American culture. And stay tuned for more of these videos. And I'll see you next time. Thank you. Bye.